I don't think that they are political titans to carry so much weight. So at some point they are bound to collapse.
I mean, jailing politicians, that's absolute red line.
Politically, that was total win.
It's also about whether Ukraine is going to be a democracy or an autocracy.
Let's show Americans that we have other alternatives.
The Georgia is not going to do anything if somebody even attacks the ambassadors.
By choice, these people
Absolutely.
put together on the wrong side of our history. I mean, all our troubles come from Russia.
Hello and welcome to Talk Georgia Question Time with me, Giorgi Rukhadze.
And with me, Nodar Kharshiladze.
This is a special edition of Talk Georgia where Nodar and I will be answering your pressing questions about Georgian and international politics.
It brought to you by Droeba Media Group, trusted source providing you news and information on analysis.
And GSAC, a think tank providing comprehensive political analysis of Georgia and wider Black Sea region, also academic and practical trainings for postgraduate students and mid-career professionals.
Now it's time for your questions.
Let me read out the first one for you. That came from David, by the way. And if you want your questions to be answered on the next show, please send them to talkgeorgia1@gmail.com. You see the email on the screen. So now going back to David's question. So it goes like this. What does Zura Japaridze's arrest reveal about the state of Ivanishvili's regime, and how might it impact further developments in Georgia?
Well, this is a relevant question, of course. Thank you very much, David.
Before I ask you to answer that question, let's give to our audience a bit of a background information what actually happened. So Zura Japaridze, who is leader of the Girchi More Freedom Party, and he's also one of the leaders of this For Change coalition. So he was placed in pre-trial detention for refusing to pay the bail amount, for denying a summons from Tzolukiani's so-called investigative commission, or one-party parliament's investigative commission, that is allegedly probing some of the crimes committed during Saakashvili's administration. Because it's not Zura Japaridze only. There were a number of Georgian politicians who were summoned to this commission, and overwhelming majority of them basically refused to go there. Obviously, some of the politicians paid the bail and avoided getting jailed. But some, including Zura Japaridze himself and some of the others, his coalition members, basically pledged not to pay the bail. And this is the first. It's not the first, but by the way, it was 2 weeks ago, Irakli Okruashvili also was sent to pre-trial detention exactly for the same reason. So yeah, this is the background very shortly. Nodar, so what do you make of it?
Well, I don't think that it reveals anything new about Georgian Dream. I think it just looks like that some of the opposition leaders decided to call Georgian Dream's bluff, and it was successful, kind of. If you look at especially at Zura's arrest, what kind of the reaction it generated in Georgian society and abroad already. I mean, it did harm Georgian Dream. One thing we can say about it, that now they have arrested Zura, they have to arrest both Nikas as well. I mean, there is no other way. I mean, because Nik Meli and Nik Waramia, who are both of them actually well known in Brussels and in Washington DC as well, and in London as well. I mean, these are politicians. And remember, last arrest of Nik Melia resulted in removal of prime minister at that time. I mean, actually, he's refused to arrest Nik Melia, and the political crisis for Georgian Dream at that time. So let's see where it goes. But one thing is obvious, that these kinds of things are accelerating this track wherever it goes. I mean, these are just more and more weights on Georgian Dream shoulders. I mean, and I don't think that they are political titans to carry so much weight. So at some point, they are bound to collapse. We don't know where this point will come, but I mean, any of this could be this last straw breaking the back of the camel. I mean, that we are in such a situation for the moment. So far, Georgian Dream, we have to give it to them, and let's grant them obvious. They managed to keep situation under the control, at least internally in Georgian. But nothing is forever, as one song says, and maybe one of these arrests or reactions to this. I mean, the reaction, I don't mean just the news, but I mean reactions in form of additional sanctions, additional considerations of sanctions against individuals might create more problems for Georgian Dream. That we already have seen before. So I think that is in a nutshell what is happening, because I would be surprised if they would not arrest Zura Japaridze, because in a way they are behaving, that was kind of obvious steps for them to do. But I'm very surprised that they thought that they could get away without any consequences. They won't. They didn't already. I mean, so they are adding more and more problems on their agenda. Well, that's the path they choose, and I don't think that there is any rational expectations now for them to reform themselves in a very short. I mean, they had a number of chances for doing so. Now, I don't know. I don't think so.
Until now, more or less, the Georgian Dream was trying to avoid this kind of situation. Okay, one might say that, you know, why, for example, President Saakashvili is in prison. I mean, President Saakashvili is a different affair. So he's an arch rival of, let's say, Ivanishvili, and Ivanishvili would do anything to jail him.
Oh, he was public enemy number one.
Behind the bars. Yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, existing politicians that now are in the opposition, jailing them, I am 100% sure, would only harm the Georgian Dream. But they basically backed themselves in the corner in a way that they have no other choice. Even if they didn't want, for example, to put Zura behind the bars, now they have no other choice. Because, again, well, when he refused to pay the bail, and if the Georgian Dream would get him away with that, that would seem weak, absolutely. And then they would have to do it with the other politicians as well. Correct. And then, I mean, how they can justify, for example, Irakli or Kruashvili's detention, right? So yes, they cornered themselves, and now, yeah, there is no other way. And as you rightly mentioned, it would definitely accelerate not only criticism, but steps from our Western partners. Because, I mean, let's face it, I mean, jailing politicians, that's absolute red line.
So their statements and their deeds, these are deeds already. I mean, statements can get you in trouble, but these are concrete actions, jailing people. This is not some kind of approval of law which has not been implemented yet. This is not some kind of the statement of parliament, or the chairman of parliament, or the deep state calling somebody. No, this is very concrete abuse of the law and the violation of human rights. I mean, obviously. So that, as you rightfully mentioned, that puts them in a different spotlight. Very bad one, actually.
Absolutely. So, and I think it marks a shift to that of the Ivanishvili's regime, moving to a next level of
open authoritarianism.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it was masked or closeted state of authority, now it's very open.
Absolutely. And I think that this would generate a lot more sanctions, a lot more criticism. And also inside the country, I believe that would make the protest more active. Of course, I mean, yeah, one should not expect that, you know, hundreds of thousands of people will flood streets because of what happened. But I think that this will push the protest movement ahead. And also, I think that it can also bring some trust and respect towards the politicians.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Because what happened until now, the grievances from the protesters and activists was that they were in the front line of the protest.
Let's say most of them valid grievances.
Yeah, they were jailed for this, and politicians were relatively kind of better off in this. I mean, now what Zura Japaridze did, and I think that it was a brave step from his side. Now he brought this new opportunity for politicians of his generations and some of the other politicians to regain trust of public. And also, I mean,
not only him, but both Nikas now will go to prison. Yeah.
Well, I don't want them to go to prison.
Well,
but again, there is no other way that the Dream can do. But last point, what I want to also make, that when everything, in fact, I mean, all the money, all the resources on this, the propaganda machine, and plus law enforcement are under regime's control, the only thing that you have left is the moral superiority. And this is what you have to use, and this is what I think Zura did. I don't know how efficiently, we will see that. But I think that was a step that could generate, you know, inside of the country and outside of the countries, some of the movements that can create new level of resistance.
Well, definitely yes, and I fully agree with everything, because this was, I think, the face-saving opportunity, and they used wisely. And politics is using the opportune moments in the favor of your cause, to advance this cause, and I think Japaridze did a great job in that. If you look at optics now, that was interesting. You saw the wife, him, it all was very Navalny type. You remember Navalny and his wife standing there and also holding hands at first before he was arrested, and I mean, that is, and it was done in a way that many people felt very emotional about it. I mean, and this young generation saw it, and you know, this family of both standing together and sharing the each other, supporting each other in this very heavy hour, because I mean, it's a dark hour for him. A guy has to go to prison. However, politically, that was total win, because now, as you said, the people who were accusing them, rightfully so, maybe in some cases, you know, young kids are in the prison and you are dining there with diplomats, and what's going on? Zura said, no, I'm gonna go there as well. I mean, and I think that will give them momentum at some point. I mean, definitely. But then we have to see how they're going to capitalize on it.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that the end of this story will be absolutely different compared to Navalny's story.
Yeah.
And again and again, I think that Zura in prison will be a lot freer in prison cell than Ivanishvili with all his money and, you know, assets and everything, right? So I think that I think he won this round of the battle. So let's see what will happen in the next round.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, let's move to the next one. So Lana is asking about something which you are particularly familiar with. So I think it makes sense that if you open up with that, why do Georgian Dream leaders openly prize anti-European and anti-democratic moves while still claiming EU membership by 2030? Is it ideology or strategy? Oh my God, I think it's neither, but I mean, go ahead. Do you think that this is some kind of grand strategy Bidzina has, that how to separate Georgia from EU and going where then? Or ideology, I mean, are we communist, or I don't know, are we are not Islamic Republic of Iran or something to be hostile by default. So what's happening?
Well, I mean, let's start from the ideology. I mean, yeah, definitely that has nothing to do with the ideology, because I mean, Georgian Dream doesn't have any ideology. No. The only ideology they have, that's Bidzina himself, his money, his power, and that's the only ideology they have. And this whole idea that they are conservatives, or
that's Mickey Mouse. Come on,
the Georgian traditionalists, or Christians, etc., etc. I mean, look, not what they say, but what they do.
Come on, right? And they used to be part of the Social Democrats of Europe. Absolutely. All of that is as fake as Kobakidze's haircut. I mean, nobody buys that. I mean, come on.
Yeah, of course. And also, I mean, look at, when they say, well, so we are Christians, etc., and look what is happening with Gelati Church. So they say we are the traditional Georgian, etc., and what they do, for example, to women, for example, on the streets, on protest, which is so anti-Georgian, for example. Okay, and I mean, you can continue forever with this. So, I mean, yeah, obviously, and tomorrow if Bidzina says that, well, he's into the the origami, I don't know, class, I'm 100% sure that the rest of the Georgian Dream will take up origami and whatever. Also, this is also false that there is a never-ending fight between good and evil thing, and something like the conservatism is fighting liberalism, or Christianity fighting, you know, the LGBTQI, whatever. So this is also false thing. So because I mean, if you take a look at modern conservatism and modern liberalism, they overlap each other quite a lot. So, and they don't really fight each other. But the real fight, which is going on in the world, I think is the fight between the democracy and autocracy. For example, if you take a look at the world now, and not only now, you've got two key camps, right? You've got democratic camp, where you've got this Western European, European Union, the Anglo-Saxon, whatever countries, and you've got the autocratic camp, where you've got Russia and China and Iran and some of the others.
Number of Asian countries, I mean.
And yeah, that's a true fight that's been going on for some time. And the Georgian Dream identified themselves with the autocratic camp, because in a democratic camp they have no chance of survival. Because if in any sort of democratic elections, the free and fair elections, they would lose their power, right? So the only way of survival for them, I think, is to stick to the autocratic camp. And I think it's obvious that whatever weakens the democratic camp is in their interests, and they are kind of trying, and they're rejoicing this kind of news. For example, if if AfD does well in Germany, well, they hail it. Okay, right. Even though I think we know that the AfD did well in Germany, but they have no control of the politics whatsoever. So the same story with the other players.
You remember when Macron was with...
And again, I mean, even, I mean, some of these small developments that they are not connected with the politics at all, and their propaganda machine is basically pushing this news forward ahead of some of the really important news. For example, a few weeks ago, I think there was a power grid that went down in few countries, in Spain and Portugal, and you should have seen what Imedit TV did with that. So it was like
they don't have water and
number one news made it. So of course, how can Georgian Dream benefit out of this? But if you take a closer look, this is what it says. That, I mean, democracy is not an efficient way of running things. And look what happened there. I mean, for example, the power grid went down. And also, they, of course, they don't want to openly talk about that they are part of this autocratic camp. And I think what they are trying to do is to support the ideas of these half-democratic developments in democratic world. Something like, for example, if another good example is this, the Romanian elections. His name is Den, so now he is president of Romania. He made a, I don't know, incredible comeback. Unthinkable comeback. He was trailing about 20 points, I think, in the first round, and in the second round, because you know, the consolidation of the democratic forces in Romania and abroad.
He won by 10 points or something. He was solid win.
But the point that I was making, that you should have seen in the first round how Georgian Dream rejoiced when this pro-Russian candidate was leading, right? And then when this happened, for example, and you know, the pro-European candidate won, of course, I mean, Rukhadze congratulated him, but there was no news about it. Right. So again, the point, what I was making is that it's not that anti-European and anti-democratic moves do something particularly beneficial for the Georgian Dream, but what they're trying to do is trying to kind of promote the gray zones and brainwash their own people that, for example, it's possible to be a gray zone and to be somehow be part of the democratic world. And the more gray zone countries would be there, the bigger this gray zone gets, the better it is for Georgian Dream. So yeah, I think that's mainly about this, and not ideology or kind of set strategy. Also, I mean, look, why Georgian Dream was supporting, let's say, the President Trump, or Trump is not pro-Russian president,
No,
but
he is anti-establishment.
yes, exactly. Because he's not necessarily anti-democratic.
But he is anti-establishment, definitely.
Absolutely. I think United States is withdrawing from the democratic camp and with actively promoting democracy across the borders.
No, they tried quite the opposite of trying to promote AfD, and this Romanian guy, Georgescu, the first guy who was banned. Then, yeah.
And this makes democratic camp weaker.
Of course it
And
does.
this is why, because even if you look at Ukraine, for example, of course the war that is going in Ukraine is about Ukraine's sovereignty and statehood, but it's also about whether Ukraine is going to be a democracy or an autocracy. And if Ukraine is going to be a democracy, there is no way that it's going to be part of Russia and autocratic world. So this is why they hate Ukrainian government and Ukraine so much. It's not only Saakashvili, or it's not only kind of support of Russia. I mean, that's the democracy versus autocracy camps.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have something to add here, but and it also goes to the third question, which asks about the Georgian Dream being called anti-American. They were not directly called anti-American, but their name was mentioned with term anti-American. So Georgian Dream and the anti-American were mentioned in one sentence. Georgian government and the anti-American, that is the truth of this is the fact. So there is this guy, Shatirishvili, who is a philosopher of the court philosopher of the supreme leader, God bless his name. So he is the architect of this strategy, which can be called a strategy. It's a stupid one, but strategy, which includes everything what you said, because he believes in that. But on a, let's say, operational level, he believes in the following. And now, let me put it here, and let's see how ridiculous it is. For example, it was his initiative as well, his strong support to go and make a strategic statement with China. It was his initiative as well, I mean, his ideas to send Khobakhidze to Islamic Republic of Iran during the funeral of this guy standing next to the Hamas leader who was killed several hours later.
And on the other side, there was Hezbollah leader, he was also killed.
Then it was his initiative as well to start open confrontation with West. And then he made a statement, as you remember, that we need to reduce number of the diplomats in Georgia, which then reflected in, and there is one of the questions, denying entry to the guys. So here's the idea. They think, and this is beyond ridiculous, but that is what it is, that they are kind of the exchanging hits with the West here. With China, I was told by a guy who was in the room when this came, let's show Americans that we have other alternatives. Okay, and then they will regret their harsh policy toward Georgian Dream. And with these UN laws, let's show them that we can be tough. So if they don't play a ball, then we can go and close down all these NGOs which they care about. Same goes with these entries and all these things. Let's show to British that we can do something again. So they're kind of considering themselves as rivals now, and not willing rivals. They're saying that this, and their message sent to the West was that this rival is not willing. You forced our hands, but here we are. So we will not back down. So this is so tragical and maybe comical, but also tragicomical that this small country, party in charge of this small, quite poor country, tries to poke United States by going to China and thinks that they will get outcome they are hoping for, that Americans will say, oh my God, yeah, we overdid it. Oh, let's go and talk with Georgian Dream now. These kind of things were not even tolerated during the Cold War when everybody was counted, who was on whose side. And now it's even more ridiculous. With the EU, if they think that the European Union become a center of power because they were always kind and nice, they are very mistaken. Europeans can be very nasty when they need to. I mean, they're democratic, but it doesn't mean they will not defend their strategic interests and they will let these kind of examples exist. I mean, freely. So I think that this, what you said, this everything, formula strategy, and then this implementation, where they think that these punitive actions against EU is kind of the exchange of blows with them, that just shows us how disconnected from reality these people are. I mean, how far their psychosis has gone. I mean, you think that now you are poking with UK and its dominion by denying entry of the
British journalists.
Will, who was our partner here, he was coming quite often here, and I would like to mention especially that the guy was doing the great job, and he's not just journalist, he's a very good investigative journalist. I mean, and they said, no, I mean, you can't. So this and this you guy coming from the enlargement section, this is all part of this these mad fantasies of these people, and few of them just. Now, question now arises that how long these people will manage to be in charge of Georgian Dream internally? How long it will take to the rest of the Georgian Dream, including Ivanishvili, to realize that they're just going to crush it? I mean, if they let them rule from now on continuously without any restraints, they're going to crush it. I mean, there is no other way. And Bidzina will get more sanctions. He will not be able to get his money back from the UK now. There is a very strong possibility of that. And there will be no rational benefit. And one thing which Bidzina used to have, he was always rational. He always backed down when he needed to. He always pushed forward, but he was never irrational. Now, it's lost. I mean, now we are kind of the victims, or I don't know, maybe hostages of Mr. Shatirishvili's madness, who thinks that Georgia, together with few small-sized European countries, can defeat some kind of global war party or global deep state.
Well, that's something new, by the way, the global deep state.
Yeah.
I think you started answering next question, which came from Ketie. So why was an EU diplomat denied entry to Georgia? What does it signal? And you are 100%. I absolutely agree with you that this is what it signals. And let's don't forget what happened in Batumi, for example, when there was a verbal attack on the German ambassador.
Yep, and the guy is unpunished. I mean, although it's a violation of the Vienna Accords. I mean, where because such attack against any citizens is punishable.
Absolutely. And it was not just a verbal attack, but later on, he basically posted a video where he threatened the German ambassador and also the Georgian president and some of the others.
He physically threatened them.
Yeah, exactly. So, and of course, this is a signal that the Georgia is not going to do anything if somebody even attacks the ambassadors. They cannot damage Germany with that, obviously, but an attack on an ambassador is an attack on a country. And but this is the message to the ambassadors, that if you are not quiet, if you keep being critical, so we will make your life hell here in Georgia. Of course, we can't do anything against Germany or against United States. Of course, it's ridiculous. But what we can do, the small thing, is that we will make your work harder for you, at least.
You know, it's very Russian in a way that but it's very provincially Russian. Now, let me explain how it goes. Russia, since the beginning of the war of the Ukraine, invasion to the Ukraine, also started to kind of doing nasty things to foreign embassies, but never openly and never officially. I mean, there are some number of but many, when they FSB illicitly come to the apartments of the foreign diplomats when they are not home and leave garbage there or replace things. I mean, but you can't factually blame them. I mean, there was no incident when somebody in Moscow in restaurants entered and started cursing U.S. ambassador and nothing happened. No. So even that is done in so amateurish way that you can trace it directly to Georgian Dream. I mean, and this notion, one notion is, that you can somehow make their life miserable. That's very much possible, and that signals them that they are in unfriendly country and they start implementing different procedures. But second, and I haven't seen it even in Soviet Union, that was never done. I mean, you openly start harassing their diplomats by sending some of your goons, or you are out of control and your goons are assaulting them, and then you are not punishing them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think here comes also not their willingness only to do that, which is a disaster itself, but their lack of understanding of consequences. Because nobody can get away with that. Because even Russians don't do that. So we have, I think, one more question left here.
Yeah, but I want to go back to the Rubio statement for a minute, because I want to basically read out what actually Secretary Rubio said.
Okay, go ahead.
Again, yeah, it came as a response to Joe Wilson's question, which went like, for 200 consecutive days, freedom-loving Georgians have heroically taken to the streets, wrapping themselves in American flags and carrying posters, etc., etc. And he asked Secretary Rubio what is his department would be doing to impose real cost on the anti-American Georgian Dream on behalf of the Georgian people. And this is what Rubio basically answered. Going back to what I've said earlier, the goal of the United States is our national interest. So we will look at that and say, is it in our national interests to have an anti-American government governing an important part of the world? And if not, we'll take appropriate actions to impose costs on that government. So here I think that there are two questions that we need to ask. Okay, is Georgia an important place for the United States? And secondly, is the Georgian government, this GD government, anti-American?
Yeah.
Okay, so if the answer to both is yes, and I think that they can have been, Georgia has been strategic partner of the United States for years.
That was last century, I think, already. I mean,
But
it looks like
still-
it was.
But still, look, when Trump was president for his first term, Georgia was strategic partner.
Vice President, no less, visited Georgia at that time.
Absolutely. So it means that Georgia is an important place.
There
the
are
United
other explanations, not only that why it's important.
But, and also the being anti-American, well, there's the pile of reasons why the Georgian Dream can be named or classified as anti-American.
Absolutely.
So I think that if there were statements coming from the Georgian Dream and, well, he didn't mean this and that was different, and take a look at the broader context, whatever. So yes, this is exactly what it means, and I think that it is going to be just a matter of time. So when these appropriate measures will start coming out from the US administration.
Well, here let me add two things. So now about the strategic importance. First of all, we are in close proximity to Ukraine, and that is important. While Americans have other alternatives and they are using those, Georgia, under normal government, could be considered as a healthy plan B or plan C for some things. But leave it alone, Georgia is one of the key countries to ensure the flow of the Caspian energy resources, which is not needed by Americans themselves, but it's needed for Americans, by Americans, for EU, so they don't start jumping a ship and making separate deals with Putin, which Trump would hate, actually. He wants to be in charge of all deals. And let's not forget, if current target of is Ukraine, future target can be Iran, because, I mean, there were very clear statements by President Trump, readiness to negotiate. However, he lowered the threshold of the enriching of uranium, and then there was a Ayatollah statement saying that we don't think that this is going to go through. So Iran and their clashes with Israel. So while on other side of the border, there are plenty of allies for the United States to do logistics and things like Emirates and Saudi Arabia itself, because they're all enemies of Iran. On this side of the border, there are Armenians who are under Russian control and their allies. There are Turks who, I have absolutely no illusion that Turks will stay in their policy and they will not give Americans. Even with Iraq, they did not give them. And the only country which remains close proximity to Georgia on this side of the border is Azerbaijan as well, who will not go to that because of the Turkish friendship and everything. It's on Georgia. So, is it saying it's super important? Probably not, but is it important? Of course it is. So, and on the anti-American, they downgraded our relationship, Americans. I mean, there was a strategic charter which is now on hold. I mean, these are the facts. And the statement by US embassies here. I mean, who doesn't represent ambassadors her own view, but who does represent statements of the United States foreign policy leaders. And Mr. Rubio himself and the Megobarry Act, passage of the Megobarry Act also shows how it's treated. So you can't really discount all of that, saying, it will be okay. No, it won't. So I think that question was asked by Congressman Wilson about Georgia, and in response, he got word anti-American and word measures in response. So I think it's pretty clear and white, black and white. Rubio, let's not forget, he's not defense secretary. He's a state secretary. So he has to be diplomatic there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next question, and which is last question here. It comes from Anna.
Yeah, it's very emotional, actually.
Can Independence Day, which is
like 2 days
coming,
from now.
Yeah, 2 days from now. How can Independence Day be celebrated with those undermining countries' sovereignty, independence? Well, and also let's not forget that the independence was won from the Russians. I mean, it didn't really fell on us, right? So, and how can you? Yeah, that's a very actual question. How can you possibly celebrate it with some of those guys who are bringing Georgia back to Russian back garden? Of course, I mean, I understand this rhetoric that, this should be a uniting day and all Georgia's day and all Georgians should celebrate it equally.
Not this time.
What do you think about it?
Well, I think that the uniting day would work if we would come from different schools of thoughts about the political policy options, about, I mean, if they were conservatives with liberals or vice versa, or if they would be some kind of, maybe even EU and anti-EU, but not pro-Russia. I mean, they would be isolationist and we would be globalists. But I don't think that I can shake hands or stand together with people, and you're making a very good point, that they're dragging us back to places where we lost our independence. I mean, they are now actively prized almost daily by Russian officials and media. I mean, when your enemy, when country who does not want you to see independent, when country who considers you as a temporarily lost territory, when their leadership and when their media opinion makers, which are of course appointed and governed by Russian, by Kremlin, when they are prizing you, you are doing something terribly wrong. It's a valid point, and unfortunately this time, because of the special
circumstance,
not even circumstance, special choices made. These are not just circumstances which were just there because of geopolitical things. No, this was I wanted to use this word, but no, by choice, these people put together on the wrong side of our history. I mean, all our troubles come from Russia for the last 200 years. So, and they're putting it. So, yes, I fully share this Anna's emotion. I don't think that I can be doing that. And plus, I mean, there is a protest event announced on 26th. So, yeah, that solves that.
And what I would like to add is that, for example, it reminds me somehow in 1921, when basically Georgia was occupied by Russians that time, and that was in February. In May, the occupiers, the communists, celebrated kind of Georgia's Independence Day.
Yeah, this is a very good fact. Not many people know that.
And, I mean, this is exactly the same thing, what is happening now, that Ivanishvili's regime, basically, who are the local office of Kremlin in Georgia, they are celebrating Georgia's Independence Day. So, I mean, this is what it is. And how can you possibly celebrate this day with them? I think there is no way. Yeah.
We all know, and let's go optimist in the end. We all know that Mr. Putin's goal was not just occupation of Ukraine. That was the means to the end. His goal was the restoration of Soviet Union, in different form and name maybe, but in same philosophy. He never has hidden. In number of interviews, he said how big a tragedy was, the collapse of it. So he wanted to get, and if he would be successful in Ukraine, Kazakhstan would follow us. So guy, he doesn't consider us as a independent nation. He wants us back as his part of the Russia province of the new Russian empire. So collaboration with them is not about the corruption, it's not about even a lack of values, it's not about temporary interest. I mean, making a deals with devil, I understand, but this is just giving up everything we fought for generations. So that's what makes it so ugly.
Thank you, Nodar. That was
Thank
it.
you, George.
Yeah, that was it for today. Thanks for watching us. Thanks for listening to us. Please like us, subscribe to us, send your questions to us, and I'll see you next week.